Personality. Personality is a unique collection of attitudes, emotions, thoughts, habits, impulses, and behaviors that define how a person typically behaves across situations. According to Freud, the ego is the conscious contract with the outside world. The superego is the preconscious material just beneath the surface of awareness. The ID is unconscious. It's difficult to retrieve material well below the surface of awareness. Superego is part of the personality that acts as a moral center. Ego is a part of the personality that develops out of a need to deal with reality, mostly conscious, rational, and logical. ID is part of the personality that present at birth and completely unconscious. For example, should I eat bacon double cheeseburger? ID, yes, it is yummy and I am hungry. Superego, no, it is bad for my health. It is not an ecological sustainable way to eat. Ego uses defense mechanisms to satisfy ID and superego. Well, just this one time won't hurt. I'm in a big hurry and it would be worse if I had. Current research on fraud. Current research has found support for defense mechanisms, the concept of an unconscious mind that can influence conscious behavior. Other fraud concepts cannot be scientifically researched. It's the fraud-based diagnosis on interpretation of dreams and free association. Psychosexual stages of development are mentioned in this chapter, but we won't cover it. Measuring personality projective test. Projection. Defense mechanism involving placing or projecting one's own unacceptable thoughts onto others as if the thoughts actually belong to those others and not to oneself. Projective test. Personality assessments that present ambiguous visual stimuli to the client and ask the client to respond with whatever comes to mind. The word search test involves a series of ink blots on 10 separate cards, some black and white, some colored. The individual is instructed to look at the ink blots one at a time and say everything that the ink blot could resemble. The examiner then conducts an inquiry into the interpretations of each blot. Is scored for location, shape, color, shading, originality, content, or other criteria. Problems with projective tests. They are very subjective concepts and impressions that are only valid within a particular person's perception and may be influenced by biases, prejudice, and personal experiences. With no standard grading scales, projective tests are low in reliability and validity. Personality traits. Trait is a tendency to behave a certain way across situations. Gordon Allport's trait theory. Central traits. Behavioral tendencies we usually exhibit across most situations. Secondary traits. Tendencies that are less consistent and more context dependent. Cardinal traits. Dominant elements of our personalities that drive all of our behaviors. Permanent elements of our personalities. Measuring personality inventories. Personality inventory, paper and pencil, are computerized tests that consist of statements that require a specific standardized response from the person taking the test. Minnesota. Evolution of personality traits. Human personality traits evolved as adaptive behavior responses to fundamental problems of survival and reproduction. The naturally selected traits are favored if they increase one's chance of survival and reproductive success. Genes and personality. Childhood temperament. Think of temperament as setting the foundation for personality development. Personality neuroscience has focused on genes that direct neurotransmitter functioning, specifically serotonin and dopamine. For example, several studies have found an association between the serotonin transporter gene and anxiety-related personality traits. Typically, personality changes across the lifespan. After the age of 30, changes in personality traits are smaller in the childhood and young adulthood. As part of the developmental process, children, adolescents, and young adults experiment with new identities and ways of behaving. Personality change over time. People generally become more conscientious, agreeable, emotionally stable, slightly less open to experience, less extroverted. Personality can sometimes change after changes in life circumstances, such as parenting, brain injury, and Alzheimer's disease. Person situation interaction. Situational factors also influence the stability and consistency of traits. Many of us display the same trait when faced with similar circumstances, that is, when the environmental cues are the same. However, when the situation is different, our behavior may change. This relationship among traits, situations, and behavior is referred to as the person situation interaction. Bandel's reciprocal determinism. We often choose certain environments which then influence our behavior and how we think. In turn, how we think guides which environments we choose and the behavior we exhibit. Our behavior may change the environment and how we think. Reciprocal determinism example. You are nervous about flying. Cognition. You behave erratically. Behavior. The flight crew and passengers react to your erratic behavior. Environment.